So we'll start the program right now. We'll start off with music before I welcome everybody. But I think music can be a very good way to welcome you, to give us some peaceful moment, mindful moment. Now let's welcome our two great musicians, Joanna and Chen. Thank you very much, Joanna and Chen. Now you understand why we want to start off with the music. We can all feel the power, the inspiration of the music. And I think this piece, Moon will also would appreciate it. Thank you. Good afternoon, distinguished guests, colleagues, students, and friends. Welcome to the memorial service for Professor Moon Tsang. We have been in this room for many times, and this is the most special event I've ever organized and ever attended. My name is Henan Cheng. I'm the executive director of the Center on Chinese Education. I and my colleagues are immensely grateful for your generous support to this special event. Thanks for joining us to pay tribute to Moon, a great scholar and educator. I want to express our sincere gratitude to Teachers College leadership team, especially President Bailey, Provost O'Meara, Vice Presidents Albert, Embry, and other leaders and colleagues. And I also want to thank our dear friends, Moon's dear friends, and the students who really take up your time by showing up, paying your tribute. I'm extremely privileged and honored to work with Moon for the past 20 years. First as a student and then colleague, I really have the privilege to get to know him and learn from him, especially during the final years of his life. Working together with him for many years, I was profoundly inspired by his integrity, diligence, humility, and dedication. As we all know, especially during his very difficult illness, and also amid a lot of challenges like the global pandemic, the strained US-China relations, and the financial constraints. But Moon's unwavering faith and support inspired me and inspired many others to persevere. In December 2020, 4 years ago, I still remember so clearly. During the peak of pandemic, I returned to China against all odds to host the center's 20th anniversary in Beijing. Both Moon and Professor Levin joined event virtually. That was the last public event Moon attended. But although he couldn't speak, but we're able to reconnect with old friends and students. This trans-Pacific exchange during such a difficult time brought comfort and encouragement to all, demonstrating the enduring resilience and strength of US-China friendship and collaboration. I know here today you're going to share a lot of stories about Moon, and today is really a celebration of his legacy, of his life. I just want to share very briefly a story, very touching story at the ceremony, the 20th anniversary. So we have a young lady who was a beneficiary of Moon's kindness. She never had a chance to meet with Moon, but she wrote a very touching letter I want to share with you. So this lady, her name is Kong Chuanying, but that's a Chinese way, but English way would be Chuanying Kong. So Miss Kong is a beneficiary of the CoCE Dr. Tsai Yanping Scholarship, initiated by Moon. Miss Kong, who had never met Moon, wrote, quote, in 2006, oh, by the way, the original text is in Chinese, so this is the English translation. In 2006, I was admitted to Yunnan Normal University as the first university student from my entire village. But my family's poverty made tuition and living expenses a constant worry. It was you who extended a helping hand. Your love crossed mountains, enable a poor ethnic group girl from the borderlands to enter university with dignity, immerse herself in the ocean of knowledge, and enjoy the beauty of university life like other students. Your support was priceless to me. Though we never met, your kindness granted me the most beautiful university experience, illuminating my life with happiness and fulfillment. I'm eternally grateful to you, Professor Moon Tsang. Actually, we all know Moon selflessly helped countless students like Kong, serving as a warm beacon in the cold night or cold day like today, lightening the way for many to pursue their educational dreams. Moon often said his work was a labor of love. Humble, upright, selfless, he exemplified the spirit of Tao Xingzhi, who is also TC alumni, the great Chinese educator. So Tao summarized his life as come with a heart full of devotion, live without a blade of grass. Whenever in Chinese is 捧着一颗心来，不带半根草去. Whenever I read this phrase, I always think about Moon. So today is a great opportunity for us to get together to remember this great educator. Now it's my great honor to welcome President Tom Bailey to share his memories and his experience about Moon. Welcome, President Bailey.
Thank you, Henan. Well, it's it's such an honor to be here today, remembering Moon, our friend, our leader, scholar, mentor. I'm here as the president of Teachers College, but I'm also here as a colleague in our department, our program for many years, as well as, most importantly, as his friend. Now, I was on the search committee when we first hired Moon to join the Department of International and Transcultural Studies. I've got to say that was one of the easiest decisions we've ever made. So we were so pleased to have him here. And the other thing is we hired him as department chair. I'm trying to remember back to, I don't know how many people we had in ITS, maybe 15, and we hired Moon to be department chair. He had an interesting background, a chemical engineering degree from MIT and a PhD in economics from Stanford, where he got to know Hank Levin. And Hank was very instrumental in enticing Moon to come here from Michigan State. So we're so grateful for that connection. So, in addition to having him lead our department, we relied on his leadership skills and talents immediately. So he also led the Economics of Education program, as well as starting the Center in Chinese Education in 2000, which was the first US academic center with a special focus on education development in China. In addition to his crucial research, perhaps the center's hallmark was an interchange of Chinese and US scholars. The CCE often hosted dozens of Chinese scholars, building on the decades, if not actually the century-long, more than a century-long, relationship between TC and China. Today, we see how fundamentally important this was. It set up a good relationship between TC and Chinese universities that will be particularly important in the current environment. So Moon also had a joint appointment in Education Policy and Social Analysis Department when we formed it in 2011. Now, Moon and I and the rest of our program had many meetings around his circular table over in Macy Hall. I remember them fondly because even though we didn't always agree on many things, on the program directions, on admissions decisions, financial aid, somehow Moon navigated those disagreements with his humor and always that characteristic smile. You could see the picture that was up there before. That was such a characteristic Moon Tsang expression. Uh, and so he was able to use that to navigate through some of these disagreements. So I've got to say, I learned a lot about leadership from Moon. Now, of course, he was an expert on Chinese education. Many of his publications focused on issues of inequality in China. A particularly important stream of research involved migration of rural Chinese, particularly women. And of course, this continues to be an issue in China. It's an issue here as well. But his expertise went well beyond China. He worked on the costs of education inclusion and marginalized populations, and even an analysis of education access, equity, and performance in Caribbean countries. Indeed, Moon combined so much that is central to the mission and history of Teachers College: a focus on access and opportunity, an international perspective, and of course, a particular focus on China. Now, Moon also had legions of students who admired him and looked up to him as a mentor. We're going to hear from many of them today. In fact, just this fall, we received a significant donation from former students to support programming at the center, as well as student scholarships in his honor and memory. In addition to our interactions in the program department, my wife Carmenza and I got to know Moon and Danka personally over all these years. When they moved to New York, we discussed where they might live and find good schooling for their daughter, Amy. We were living in Scarsdale, and in the end, they decided to look for a house there, and we were pleased actually to host them while they were still waiting for their house to be ready to go. So they were in our house then, and there were many times that we exchanged dinners and other kinds of things over the years, and we were always delighted to hear of how Amy was progressing through school, and I understand now she's received her PhD, and I can remember when she was a lot smaller than that. It was really a wonderful relationship. So Moon left an enormous legacy of scholarship at TC. He was a visionary leader. He was a model of compassion, encouragement, and thought. I know you will hear from many people today. He was well loved and regarded and missed by many of us. Thank you.
So Tom just mentioned about Danke, and the last 5 years, I witnessed Danke being a strong woman, stay positive, resilient, and that's how she really made the final years of Moon really fulfilling. And now let's welcome Danke to share. Say a few words about Moon. Thank you.
And the consequence is that my black hair become white. Okay, hi, good afternoon, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Moon's wife of 38 years. I'm grateful for TC for organizing this memorial to celebrate Moon's life. First, I want to use this opportunity to thank many people, all of you who made this event possible, especially President Bailey and his team. Of course, many other administrators and staff members. And I want to thank President Bailey for his friendship with my family. As I said, the first week we came to New York, we spent a whole week in his house. And I also want to thank Professor Henry Levin, Hank, for his mentorship and friendship to Moon and to my family. I want to thank Diane for her years of support of Moon's work and for her friendship to Moon and my family. I know without you, Moon's life here would be much bumpier. And Hervé, I want to thank you very much for working with Helan to keep the Center on Chinese Education going strong. I still fondly remember the meal we shared at your Manhattan house Moon and I. Okay, thank you so much. I also want to thank all Moon's Chinese friends and colleagues, particularly the people who are going to speak online today, like Professor Guo Mingyuan, Lin Weifang, Zhou Hongyu, Yan Fengqiao, Zhang Cehua, and many others. I cannot name all of them, otherwise my 10 minutes will be over, okay? I want to thank Dr. Helan Tsang. Thank you for your amazing job as the executive director of the Center on Chinese Education. I'm sure that Moon would be very proud of you for your keeping the center going strong. I also want to personally thank you for your support and friendship to Moon and my family in the past 5 years. My gratitude also goes to all people who are associated with the Center on Chinese Education, as well as all Moon's colleagues, friends, and students in China and in other parts of the world. I know some people are online from other parts of the world. Thank you all for your support. It means a lot to my daughter Amy and me. Now I want to share a bit of background about Moon's life and his work. Moon was diagnosed with initially Parkinsonism and later MSA, multiple system atrophy, in 2015. When he became incapacitated in 2019, I was told that he only had a few months to live. However, it was a miracle that he lived for 5 more years. I think the miracle was created by all the love and the support coming from all his colleagues, friends, and students. You know, some of Moon's students even visited him at the nursing home from China. So my daughter Amy and I are eternally grateful for your support. Mon told me many times that TC was very dear to him because TC's mission of creating a more just, equitable, and healthier world resonated with him. To Mon, the power of education to change people's lives and to change the world was not just a slogan or a theory. It was his personal experience and professional practice. Mon was born in Hong Kong to an extremely poor family. Both of his parents were illiterate factory workers, doing the jobs most people did not want to do to support 13 children. Mon was number 9 of the 13 kids. Mon's early childhood was spent in a shack in a slum in Sensipo, one of the poorest districts in Hong Kong. Without any electricity or running water, people in the slum relied on candles for lighting. And Mon's family's shack was burned down twice before he was 6 years old. I remember that we visited Hong Kong in early 2000 and drove past a bridge in Sensipo. Mon told Amy and me that after their home was burned down, the entire family slept underneath that same bridge. Finally, in 1960s, Mon's family was able to move into a low-income public housing, and he was able to attend a public school. It was at the public school. One of the teachers told Moon that for poor kids like him, education was the only way for them to move out of poverty, and Moon must study hard to earn scholarships to continue his education. And Moon, of course, took his teacher's words to heart. While Moon was in elementary school, every Sunday he would take his 5 years old younger brother with a watering can in hand to go to a nearby cemetery to watering flowers for those people who are visiting their relatives' tombs to earn a few pennies to pay for his school supplies. When Mon was 9 years old, every summer he was hired out by his family to work either in a damson shop or a factory. Every morning he had to get up at 5 o'clock and work over 10 to 13 hours each day. His hard work paid off. Mon was able to attend one of Hong Kong's best high schools, Huaren Suyuan. Many of Hong Kong's political business leaders are alumni of the school. Because of Mon's academic excellency, Mon was admitted to MIT with a full scholarship in chemical engineering. Even at MIT, Mon worked 2 campus jobs in addition to his scholarship to earn money to send back to Hong Kong to help his family out because he has so many brothers and sisters. And recently, when I was sorting through Mon's belongings, I discovered a notebook which recorded his financial matters while he was at MIT. I noticed that Mon sent $25 US dollars each month to help his family back in Hong Kong. Then most of us would struggle to earn a BS or BA from college in 4 years. But Mon used 4 years at MIT to earn both a BS and a master's degree in chemical engineering. After MIT, Mon worked for a technology company in California for a year. Life was good, but it was not something satisfactory to Mon. He decided to go back to school to empower himself to do more for other people who had experienced poverty like him. He was accepted into 3 PhD programs at Stanford University: chemical engineering, business, and education. Mon entered the School of Education. He wanted to use the power of education to help others and make a positive difference in the world. The establishment of the Center on Chinese Education at the TC was one of the most proud projects Mon have ever worked on. The center became a very important platform to promote scholarly research on Chinese American education, forge educational exchange between China and the United States, and directly help marginalized young people in China and other places of the world escape poverty through education. After recent money from various places, the center was able to help thousands of elementary school aged children in poor Chinese counties in Yunnan province to attend school. The center also allowed 22 minority young women from poor counties in Yunnan, China to attend normal school with the requirement that after their graduation, they would return to their hometown to become teachers. Helan mentioned about the wonderful, the heartfelt letter sent to Mon by one of the 22 girls. And she actually is doing the same thing what Mon has been doing. Mon was doing. She joined groups to help poor children to attending school in her own school. Now she teaches. She is an English teacher at a county level high school. Now she initiated a project, raising funds to ensure that the poor kids in her school would have money to pay tuitions and aids. So a few days ago, Mr. Yang Chonglong, the former director of Yunnan Province's Education Evasion sent a memorial letter to me to thank Moon for changing thousands of young men and women's lives through education in Yunnan province. Initially, he wants me to read the letter, but I don't have time. I will send the letter to Henan. The initial funding of the center came from a Henry Luce Foundation, which wanted to keep to help continue the special relationship TC has with China for over a century. We all know that TC faculty members Jiang Duwei, Paul Monroe, and others visited China in 1920s, and several prominent Chinese educational leaders such as Tao Xinzhi, Zhang Bolin, and many others also studied at TC. Both Chinese and American scholars have long recognized the importance of those educational exchanges and their contributions to both countries' education. I am a historian, and I believe that the century-long relationship between TC and China promoted not only educational exchange, it is a great evidence that US-China had a long shared history. We all know that US-China relations are crucial to world peace and prosperity, especially at this moment. Jiang Duwei and Paul Monroe's and other TC faculty's China trips in 1920s promoted people-to-people relations between the two countries and wrote the early chapters of the shared history of the two nations. I hope that the Center on Chinese Education would continue the work and write many more new chapters on the shared history of US and China relations. I know that Moon will rest in peace because the center is going strong, and Moon as a little pebble has created a big ripple effect in the world. Many of Moon's former students are using the power of education, promoting a more just, equitable, and healthier world now. Thank you very much.
Again, thank you all who contribute to this album.
郑满超教授，郑满超教授，郑满超教授离开我们已经半年。
Can you pause so that I can?
郑满超教授离，郑满超教授离开我们已经。
暂停一下吗？好。So because Moon has many, as you know, many Chinese partners, and especially Professor Mingyuan Gu, who is at the age of 95, has been knowing Moon for 4 decades. But obviously, he cannot come here, attend the event in person. So he made this video, and it's in Chinese, but there's an English subtitle. And the next few videos, they're all from Moon's close friend in China. So I won't just have interruption. So we'll start off with Professor Mingyuan Gu, the former vice president of Beijing Normal University. And then after him will be Professor Wei Fangmin, who is Moon's classmate at Stanford, who's also former president of Peking University. And then is Professor Zhou Hongyu, the first, a very famous historian from Central China Normal University and our center's first visiting scholar, an expert on Paul Monroe, John Dewey, Kilpatrick, etc. And after him will be the speech by President Ce Huazhang of Nanjing Xiaozhuang University. Now let's start off with Professor Gu Mingyuan.
半年多了。郑满超教授离开我们已经半年多了，我们都很怀念他。郑满超教授，我们第一次见面是在1986年，他到北师大来访问，我给他介绍中国教育的问题。1998年呢，他从斯坦福大学到了哥伦比亚大学担任教授，啊，后来还担任了教育学会的教育系的系主任。他热爱中国，首先想到的是为中国教育服务，啊，所以他担任这个哥伦比亚大学教育系的主任以后呢，第一个项目就是从世界银行啊用到了这个500万美金，为云南的500名女童能够受到应有的教育，啊，2000年呢，他成立了中国教育研究中心，这是美国第一个研究中国教育的学术机构，啊，以后呢，他为中国的大学啊培养了大批的人才，啊，我在上一个世纪末啊，我就介绍这个老师去进修啊，这个第一个老师就是四川大学的郭美玲教授，以后呢又推荐了齐春霞、王伟等博士去进修学习，啊，郑满超教授对他们这个非常热情啊，我推荐的教师呢从来没拒绝，啊，以后呢有很多的中国的老师到那儿去访问，去学习，是吧？促进了这个中美教育的交流啊，我非常感谢他对中国教育的热情，也是在他的倡议之下啊，哥伦比亚大学教育学院，在我任教50周年的时候呢，授予我哥伦比亚大学教育学院荣誉教授的称号。我认为这是他对中国教育学者的一种褒奖，对中国教育热情的一种重要的表现。也感谢他们对我的信任。今天我们呢怀念他啊，我们要继承他的事业，进一步加强中美教育的教育合作啊，加强 中国教育和哥伦比亚大学的合作进一步来促进我们中国教育的现代化。我们深切的怀念，再一次深切的怀念他。对。
Today, we are getting together here to cherish our loving memories of Professor Tsang. Moon was my classmate and one of my best friends more than 40 years ago. In the early 1980s, both Moon and I studied economics of education at the Graduate School of Education of Stanford University. Both of us under the advice and the guidance of Professor Henry Levin. We are also live in the same dormitory building, so we saw each other every day, and every weekend we get together to discuss the frontier issues in economics of education and exchange our learning experiences in the week. And also, every weekend, we go shopping of groceries together. Then we do cooking together. So when we have a meal together and we discuss academic issues, and also as young people, we discuss our lives in the future. Both of us has a expectation for a bright future and a happy life. So as a person, both of us benefit a lot from Professor Henry Levin's advice. And also, we learn a lot from Professor Henry Levin to be a good scholar, also to be a kind person. And one thing I will be never forgot is when both of us students, in the summer, we went to China to visit a university. And in those years, in the summer of Chinese universities, they have a long break during the noontime, usually from 12 at noon to 2 p.m. in the afternoon. So there are 2 hours. And the university received us, prepared a little room for us to rest. And the room has only one bed. And after a brief lunch, and we had about 2 hours of rest. And I look at the room, is there only one bed? I said to Moon, you take a nap in the bed, and then I can stay at the chair to do some reading. But Moon said, no, we don't have a custom to take a nap at noontime in America. You should take a nap in the bed. So he insisted that I use the bed for rest during the noontime. And so I did take a very good nap. Then when I awake from the bed, I found Moon was taking a nap and sleeping on the floor, and so I was so moved, and so he such considerate and such kind of person who always put his friends in the first, and he let me have a rest in the bed, and he just lay down on the floor. So we became very, very close friends, and I invited him to my home to meet with my family. So all my family members like him very much, and they all think Moon is a very kind person and a very capable scholar. And later on, both of us graduated from Stanford University with PhD in economics under advice of Professor Henry Levin. And then I returned to Peking University, and Moon eventually worked at Columbia University as a professor and also department chair. And he thinks that both China and America are important countries in the world, and both has a responsibility for the stability, development, and prosperity of both countries, and it is good for both people. So he did everything he can to promote academic exchange between the Chinese scholars and American scholars. And he said, by this way, we can promote the mutual understanding and friendship and cooperation between the Chinese people and the American people in general. Also, when China started a World Bank investment project, a project called Education Development in the Po Province project, and 114 poor counties were selected with the support of the World Bank and the Chinese government. They were working together in the 114 counties. And when we implement the project, he showed his special care to those kids' education, the young kids' education from the low-income families, especially the girl or little girls' education, and the ethnic minority group pupils. And he emphasized that as a policy priority, we should be given more help to low-income family pupils and minority group pupils, especially give priority support to the girl pupils, the female pupils. He's such a kind person, and he makes significant contribution to the project. And the project lasted for more than 6 years, and we are working closely together, both as the member of the expert panel for the implementation of this important World Bank project in the Po province of China. And Moon also served as honorary president of Chinese Association of Economics of Education. He made significant contribution. He made a significant contribution to the development and the prosperity of economics of education as an academic discipline in China. And today, we cherish our loving memories of Professor Moon Tsang, and we will always remember his contribution to Chinese education and his contribution to the friendship, the mutual understanding friendship between the Chinese people and the American people. And as a personal friends, and his friendship to me has been never to be forgotten.
满超先生是我非常敬重的学者和老朋友，他辞世半年多来，我的心情一直很沉重。今天回忆起与满超先生相识相交的情形，恍如昨日。想到24年前，我在纽约回国前夕，赠送满超先生的一首长头诗，赠哥伦比亚大学曾满超教授。在诗前有个说明，曾满超先生为美国哥伦比亚大学教育学院中国教育中心的主任，国际知名教育学者。2000年11月，他邀请我赴中心从事访问研究，并主动拨款数千美元为我聘请研究助理2人，助我颇多。我回国前夕向其辞行，无以为谢，乃作长头诗赠之，以作纪念。诗写道：赠你莫若赠诗篇，曾经沧桑又半年，满腹君仪踏归程，超越前人与时贤。重温旧作，百感交集，感慨万千。而今物是人非，诗人已驾鹤西去，满超事业当永存。满超先生是一位杰出的教育经济学家，他一生躬耕教坛，爱国、爱家乡、爱学生，也爱同行，热爱教育事业。他的大爱精神令人钦佩。他曾募集资金，资助5000余名云南贫困学生，培养了一批云南优秀的中小学教师和教育行政人员。满超先生曾担任中国教育经济学会的名誉会长，为世界银行、美洲开发银行和联合国教科文组织等国际机构提供教育咨询，推动了教育经济学的发展和应用。满超先生一生坚守教育理想、教育信念，充满教育情怀。他学贯中西，造诣深厚，是享誉国际的教育经济学名家。此时此刻，难易哀思，再作长头小诗一首，题为缅怀满超先生，以表深切的思念。怀瑾卧玉先生风，真君学问中西融，满抱大爱须筋骨，超世理想要苍穹。我们永远缅怀 满超先生。
各位朋友，今天我们怀着无比崇敬与深切怀念之情，参加郑满超先生的追思会，追思他高尚的品格、行知识风范。今年4月24号，我率领南京小张学院代表团来到哥伦比亚大学中国教育研究中心，参加从哥伦比亚大学到中国，陶行知与他的精神传承国际学术研讨会。那时啊，我从陈赫南教授那里得知郑先生不久前病逝，我们深感痛惜。郑教授一生奉献于教育事业，在教育经济学、跨文化研究、教育公平等学术领域的卓越建树，犹如璀璨星辰，照亮了教育世界的浩瀚天空。他的研究成果，无论是对教育理论经纬的探索，还是在教育政策与实践的精准分析，都为全球教育提供了宝贵的智慧财富。郑教授教人求真的自学态度，教学做合一的研究思维，捧着一颗心来，不带半根草去的奉献精神，是当之无愧的行知识大先生，是我们教育工作者学习的楷模。郑教授是哥伦比亚大学中国教育研究中心的创始人，他投入了大量的精力推动中心的发展，秉承着杜威、孟若、顾炳文、陶行知、胡适等中美教育家的思想与实践，毕生致力于中美教育交流。这让我联想起1917年，陶行知先生从美国回到中国。1927年3月，他在极端困难的情况下，来到南京，创办了南京小张学院的前身小张试验乡村示范。从哥伦比亚大学到小张，陶行知与他的精神传承对中国教育现代化产生了极为重要影响。近2年，各大中国教育研究中心与南京小张学院的学术交流更加频繁，教育合作更加深入，科研成果初步显现。今年10月23号，我们共同举办了中西方教育交流的里程碑——杜威、顾炳文、陶行知、陈克勤教育思想学术研讨会，这更让我们深切缅怀郑满超先生的开创之举，功在当代，利在千秋。郑教授对陶行知教育思想的深刻理解与高度认同，也进一步强化了我们传承弘扬陶行知教育思想精髓的信念与决心。郑满超教授的功绩和精神将永远被铭记，希望由他开创的教育研究和中美教育交流事业继续发扬光大。谢谢。
各位朋友，大家好，我是北京大学教育学院严凤桥，怀着十分崇敬和感恩的心情，参加郑满超先生的追思会。今年4月，郑满超先生去世，作为他生前曾经关心、支持和工作过的地方，北京大学教育学院的师生感到无比的悲痛。大家以不同的方式追思和怀念郑先生对他们学业和生活上的帮助和扶持，以及对于北大教育学科建设做出的贡献，更化为实际行动，努力在学术上更加精进。看到哥伦比亚大学中国教育研究中心执行主任陈赫南博士传来的中心几人10月中国之行的信息，包括在北京举办的哥伦比亚大学 与中国教育现代化暨纪念杜威诞辰165周年研讨会等系列活动的信息。这些有意义的活动让我更加感到郑先生留给我们的宝贵财富，除了他在教育经济学专业领域做出的杰出学术贡献外，更重要的是由他创建的哥大中国教育研究中心继往开来，功莫大焉。多元性是人类社会的一个显著特征，人类社会因此而繁荣和欣欣向荣。中国人类学家费孝通先生提出“各美其美，美人至美，美美与共，世界大同”。哥大中国教育研究中心代理主任 Harvey Varana 在访问中国时指出，多元文化交融可以带来新的教育模式，为教育系统注入新的活力。顾明远教授认为，教育是理解的桥梁，是和平的种子。杜威时期的哥大成为中国留美学生的聚集地。郑满超先生接过了前人的接力棒，建立了中国教育研究中心。他已经发挥并将继续发挥重要的增进跨文化理解的作用。1924年，北京大学成立教育学系，今年刚好100周年。在北大教育学科发展的早期，有不少学者与哥大教育学院有着密切的联系。除了胡适和蒋梦麟外，还有程有孙、吴俊升等人。程有孙在哥大完成的《中国教育财政之改进》博士论文，得到马寅初先生的高度评价，称之为把一件开拓性的中国工作完成的如此杰出。吴俊升选择杜威教育学说作为博士论文题目，他先后3次访美，其中有2次与杜威本人面对面交流，修订了《杜威教育学说》一书，可见北大与哥大学术交流的历史源远流长。最后，祝愿郑满超先生在天之灵安息，由他开创的中美教育交流事业定在后人手中不断发扬光大。谢谢。
Hello.
Now let's welcome Hank. Hank, because we're a little bit behind schedule, would 5 minutes be good?
I'll certainly try to do it in 5 minutes.
All right. I'm sorry. Yeah.
That's all right.
Thank you, Hank.
Sure. I met Moon Tsang in 1977. So that's 47 years. A lot of time, a lot of experiences, and on the whole, very positive, and he was very influential for me, even though he was a graduate student and we had to work together, where I was the chair of his dissertation committee, as with Min Wei Fang. In fact, you can imagine having 2 of them at a university together studying, two very powerful thinkers and very good. But I will say just a few things. As you know, he was a chemical engineer, got a bachelor's and master's degree from MIT in 4 years. He then went on to Michigan State University after receiving his PhD. And I was able to keep close connections with him over these years. I was very pleased that he was hired to chair the Department of International and Transcultural Studies some 20-something years ago. What really impressed me about Moon was his many dimensions. On the one hand, he had very strong skills that were very pertinent in the economics of education. But where he taught me, right, he taught me was somewhat different. Now, he came to me by way of Louis Wu, one of my doctoral students at the time. And Louis kept saying, you have to talk with him because he got these 2 degrees from MIT in engineering, chemical engineering, but he's not satisfied. He was employed by a Silicon Valley firm, but he felt he had very little influence on the kinds of needs that countries, regions, individuals, and other entities needed for a fair society, for a just society. And what he taught me was learn to use social skills and support skills for students. We constantly talked about this, mathematical skills, about economic theory applied to education, and we're impatient in terms of wanting students to complete degrees and get out in the field and make their contributions. 2 words that I heard from him very early were social and social and skills at supporting students beyond just the technical skills needed. This was completely new to me. I had always thought that PhD ought to be a very rigorously set degree, and that those were the areas. But he would come to me and work with me at Stanford. He got a position at Stanford because of all of these other contributions that you've heard about. And he was very, very important in terms of saying, we're concerned with social outcomes as well as individual outcomes, and we have to provide social support in order to help students understand those areas and use them for their own research and findings. I followed Moon in his career at Michigan State University, and I was delighted when I found out we had an opening at Teachers College and that he was being considered and that he indeed was appointed to the opening in the Department of International and Transcultural Studies. I would constantly come to Moon to talk about ideas and what he thought of my understanding of these ideas. And I'm reminded that today in education, including the economics of education, it's not just cognitive skills, it's not just research skills that are important, but social and emotional skills in imparting educational change, in imparting fairer societies and societies that can benefit from the social focus on them. And we've incorporated that in our own research in recent years. I kept close connections with him after he received a PhD. He was a wonderful colleague, not only for me, but for others as well. And what was interesting was he was knowledgeable about the tools that students had to learn to do research and analysis. But more than this, he was kind and he had social skills for his students, and those were a lesson for me. I can see that there's so much that took place in those 47 years at 2 institutions. He was at Stanford after his PhD for a short time, and then he went to Michigan State, and then he joined Teachers College after that. I would go to him for advice on China, and I learned about China over many years through my relationships with Moon and with Min Wei Feng. 47 years is a long time. We did joint articles together. We had discussions. We attracted outstanding students. It was just really two careers for me at two different universities with Moon. Our attachment to concern about equity and opportunity was a constant theme of the work that we did. And he was so modest and so kind that he never told me about the girls' schools in the southeast of China that he had started. And so I'm going to stop here because my battery apparently is running low. But I just want to say that it is more than an honor for me to serve in this role. It's seeing the beginning and completion and the application of ideas that have really enriched the field of economics of education by someone who constantly talked of kindness, of social support, of helping students make the grand final words on their dissertation. And so this is, in talking of all these, many of us were influenced by Moon. And he cared about individual students, but he cared about all of you, and he cared about the social outcomes of education. I miss him vastly. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Hank. Thank you, Hank. I'm so pleased that Hank can join us from California because even yesterday he mentioned about he had a technical issue, couldn't join us, but I'm so glad he overcome the technological barriers and sharing this very touching speech, kindness and caring. So now let's welcome Professor Erwi Verin to give a brief remark. Thank you. Welcome.
I got to know Moon first as the chair of the department. My programs in anthropology and I were joining. The process, for some of you may remember it, had been complex, if not difficult. Moon, the graceful person he always was, smoothed the transition and made us all anthropologists welcome. Over the years, we worked together in the same department, and these first impressions were steadily reinforced. I eventually got to know Moon better in his various roles, first as department chair and senior colleague, and then as academic researcher, teacher, and mentor of so many students, and eventually as the relentless builder of Teachers College's relationships with colleagues and institutions in China. In all these roles, I saw him remain steadily graceful, respectful, always acknowledging a work well done that expanded our contribution to the shaping of the future of Teachers College as the institution we always hope it will be. And of course, Moon was not only concerned with the United States, as sometimes your economists, but he was also very interested, obviously, with the rest of the world and with China as the powerful interlocutor for the United States it has indeed been with the rest of the world over many centuries. When I first met Moon, I knew very little about China. None of the accidents of my personal and professional life had led me to it. It would introduce me to the world of China, and particularly to the work of its scholars, imagining and instituting new solutions to classic conundrums in education as a humanistic and practical enterprise. In 2001, Moon arranged for me to give 3 lectures at Beijing Normal University. This was my first trip across the Pacific, and in a preparation, I read some of Moon's papers. It taught me that over the centuries, and particularly over the last one, scholars, philosophers, and policymakers had experimented steadily with various ways of organizing schooling and education in an always changing world. This was amazing. 20 years later, I accepted the responsibility of directing Moon's great legacy, the Center for Chinese Education, which he founded and has been magnificently managed by the current executive director, Dr. Tsang. Given the foundations that Moon built for this center, this is indeed a humbling responsibility. Heard so far humbles me even further. This is allowing me to continue learning about Chinese education, its history and legacies, as well as the efforts of so many in universities and beyond to build it further. Moon provided us with a magnificent model for all of us to follow. As a professor, teacher, scholar, and indefatigable worker at the service of Teachers College and many other institutions on both sides of the Pacific. Yes, you will be remembered and honored. I will continue to learn from the example he set.
The first time. So finally, I think I brought Diane to China, and Moon would be happy about it.
And I'm grateful. I'd just like to share some of the memories I have of Professor Tsang when he served as chair of the department. I first met Professor Tsang in 1998 when he joined the college as professor and chair of the department. I have many fond memories of Professor Tsang. While I worked for him when he was chair, I remember marveling at his oh, there was not even a piece of paper on his desk or a book out of place.
What's up?
I remember that he was a brilliant. I remember that he was very proud of his wife and their accomplishments. He was committed to promoting a strong relationship between China and the U.S. He established the Center, as you all know, on Chinese education and held many joint conferences with faculty and China, with faculty from China and Teachers College. I remember that he would regularly visit Royal identify promising students and provide funding for their education. He continued to strengthen U.S.-China educational ties, building on the tradition that had begun at Teachers College more than a century ago under Dewey, Monroe, and Kilpatrick. I more fully understand that connection and their emphasis on education as a result of my recent visit to China. Through the center, he was able to financially help many Chinese students pursue degrees at Teachers College. He believed deeply in community building And as department chair, he made it a point to acknowledge any assistance from college-wide staff that helped the department. On a more personal level, he always asked husband and son where they're doing, and even when he was no longer department chair of ITS, he would regularly stop by my office to say hello and check on how I was doing. I would always tell him that I wanted him to be my department chair again before he retired. I am grateful for having had the opportunity to know him and Don such years. May he and his contributions to humanity be remembered always.
Now let's welcome another scholar from our community, Columbia University. Director Tsang has been doing work and get to know Moon long time ago, and also Danke. And they have been doing parallel work to promote U.S.-China educational cooperation. Now let's welcome Mr. Jim Tsang.
Thank you. Yes, I'm going to reflect Professor Meng Zheng's dedication, scholarship, and contribution to his field at the Teachers College to some fundraising occasions when I was directly or indirectly involved. In 2013, when I first met the descendants, Carolyn Xu of the Guo Bingwen, who was the first Chinese national received the Teachers College's PhD in 1914. Yes, and then I introduced her first time to Professor Man Zheng and our Man Zheng's colleagues in the Chinese Teachers College. So we together formed the idea to organize a symposium on the Guo Bingwen in 2014. And then we conducted a symposium with very successful events, coming with the establishment of scholarship of Guo Bingwen Guo Bingwen scholarship funds for the international students from China in 2015. Professor Tsang was one of the key players, and his contribution to the success of the symposium and the establishment of the funds were indispensable. Also, after 2015, I was also involved with the fundraising efforts led by Professor Tsang for CCE and relate to the memory of the TC's alumni Cao Jingzhi. And we know the fundraising is complicated and time-consuming and sometimes difficult. But during the process, I was deeply impressed and admired immensely of Professor Tsang's relentless, persistent efforts, patience during the process. And even though he was sick and he already retired from TC, and I remember several occasions he came to campus to meet with the donors and potential donors. And Professor Tsang will live eternally in our hearts. Thank you.
So by the way, that event Jim mentioned happened here to commemorate the centennial for Guo Bingwen's graduation from Teachers College 10 years ago. It's right here. And thank you for sharing your experience working with Moon. Now I want to welcome our dear friend Amra, also former friend and colleague of Moon. Thank you, Amra.
Dear colleagues, friends, and esteemed guests, it is an honor to be with all of you this afternoon to celebrate the life of Professor Moon Tsang. Today, we have heard of his remarkable achievements and the powerful impact he left on students in his lifetime. I would like to share the particular way in which his legacy intersects with my work on preventing hate-fueled violence. As the executive director of the International Interfaith Research Lab here at Teachers College, my team and I focus on building bridging bonds through our programs, research, and projects with educators, middle schoolers, high schoolers, and several key stakeholders across local communities, nationally and globally. Unlike bonds of kinship and family, bridging bonds aren't given to us. They're created by entering spaces like a school or university, where we come from all walks of life and bring our rich identities with us. In building resilience to hate and nurturing belonging in classrooms, schools, and communities, bridging bonds have a protective and preventive force that unites us. Professor Tsang, not only at Teachers College, but across several institutions throughout China, was a champion of building these very bonds through mentorship, collaboration, and support. It is his legacy in building these bonds that overlaps with our lab's mission to sustain and expand local, national, and global efforts to lessen hate and build stronger cross-cultural efforts in order to erode hate and hate-fueled violence, and thereby honor the common human values that bind us together. With exceptional leaders like Dr. Henan Cheng and inspiring initiatives such as the Center on Chinese Education, it is our collective responsibility to honor Professor Tsang's legacy through the building of genuine and long-lasting partnerships and commitments to community engagement across geographies, cultures, and languages. I hope we can honor the remarkable legacy of Professor Tsang by supporting the dreams of forthcoming generations of students who wish to create a world where we all truly belong. Thank you.
Thank you, Amara, for your generous support for so many years. I really appreciate it.
我是2001年到2015
So
年
this is
在哥伦比亚大学
Dr.
师范学院跟从
Ding,
曾满超老师攻读博士
so
学位
he
的。从我一入学开始，曾老师教，并且对我有一
So
个
Yan
期
Qingding,
望、
he
期待。
was
我
he probably was one of the first doctoral student of Moon here at TC, and he's a professor at Peking University Graduate School of Education, and he has done amazing work related to rural China, promote equality, equity, and opportunity. So let's just listen to some of his work and how it's inspired by Moon.
我是2001年到2015年在哥伦比亚大学师范学院跟从曾满超老师攻读博士学位的。从我一入学开始，曾老师教导我，并且对我有一个期望、期待，我应该回到中国，应该深入到农村、贫困、偏远的地区。他的原话是 "Get your hands dirty"， 要做一个什么工作？就是做这个贫困地区的教育以及扶贫的一个工作 ，education and poverty reduction in rural areas， 这是曾满超老师他交代给我的未来回到中国的这种使命。实际上我是受到了曾老师的感召，因为曾老师的教导，我在回国之后，我一直投身于贫困地区的教育扶贫的干预，以及其他方面跟扶贫有关的项目和活动。我的研究近些年也主要是扶贫为目的的教育干预活动，比如说教育信息干预，并且应该说也取得了一点小小的成果。实际上，我个人认为主要应该归功于曾满超老师曾满超老师他有一颗赤子之心，他对待弱势群体，特别是对于我们中国落后地区的教育和民生发展，一直是他有最深刻的一个关怀。就这一点，我从曾老师身上学到了很多，也得到了他对我的非常强的这种感召指引。那我会终身铭记曾老师对我的教导那么在教育扶贫、教育富民这方面这条道路上继续努力做出我应该有的贡献。
So now see his impact is Moon passing down to the next generation. Now, talking about next generation, we also have
I am Zhang Yu, a doctoral student of Professor Moon Tsang. I had the great honor of studying under him from 2007. I am Zhang Yu, a doctoral student of Professor Moon Tsang. I had the great honor of studying under him from 2007 to 2011, and am now working at the Institute of Education, Tsinghua University. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to express my sincere appreciation and means to Professor Tsang. Being mentored by Professor Tsang early in my academic career has been one of the greatest blessings of my life. Professor Tsang was a scholar of profound depth. His pioneering contributions in the field of educational finance, cost analysis in education, and educational inequity have had far-reaching policy impacts globally. He played a crucial role in the development of educational economics in China. Furthermore, he dedicated himself to fostering academic exchanges between Chinese and American students and scholars, creating numerous opportunities for Chinese scholars to study and engage in dialogue in the United States. During my doctoral studies at Columbia University alone, I had the opportunity to assist him in hosting dozens of graduate students and faculty, as well as hundreds of government officials from educational administration. Professor Tsang was a person of humanity, integrity, and boundless kindness. He always put the needs of his students first. When I was conducting data collection, he personally flew to Jinan, China, and meet with the local director of Education Bureau, helping me establish trust and enabling me to collect high-quality data. While I was writing my dissertation under immense time pressure, I would always return feedback as quickly as possible, no matter how busy he was, helping me complete my PhD within 4 years. Even after I started working, he continued to care for me. Professor Tsang not only provided me with a solid foundation in education economics, but he also taught me through his words and action the importance of rigorous scholarship, the value of creativity, and how to care for and guide students. These lessons have been invaluable treasures in my life. I strive to embody these principles in my own academic research and mentorship. It is my lifelong commitment to repay and honor Professor Tsang's guidance through my teaching and scholarly endeavors. May Professor Tsang rest in peace in the heaven, watching over us as we grow and feeling profound of our journey.
So last month, we went to Diane and Ari, and we went to Tsinghua and met with Sophia, and we're going to see her again soon. Now we have two more Moon's former students who are here able to join us in person and share their stories. So, we'll start off with Dong, and to share your experience. Welcome, Dong.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very honored to be part of this family of colleagues and former students to remember and celebrate life of Professor Tsang. I also have a short statement from Francisco River-Batiz, who cannot be here with us today. I'll do my speech first, and I'll read his statement afterwards. Everyone before me have spoken extensively about Professor Tsang's work. I will not repeat them. The only thing I wish to emphasize once more was his effort in establishing the field of economics education in China, both with his own efforts in outreaching and training generations of educational leaders from China, as well as training many Chinese students who became leaders in education upon their returns. Much of that work was done through the China Center on Economics Education, which many of us were part of and even part of now. Professor Tsang spoke many times after I graduated from the program, how we can preserve the center, preserve the center's work, and trying to get an endowment and so on and so forth. And I'm very happy to see that we're making some very meaningful progress under leadership of Professor Varian and Henan. Despite the gravity of his professional work and his towering figure in the education world in China, I also like to share two stories about my interactions with Professor Tsang. Professor Tsang was known to be a very disciplined and methodical advisor. I had the honor of having him as a second reader on my dissertation, which focused on the historical labor market returns to smaller class size and teacher quality. Given Professor Tsang's expertise in China, I constantly sought him out for advice. Often joked with my peers, had Professor Tsang been my primary advisor, I would have graduated the program under 3 years instead of the 6 it took me under Professor River Baptiste. I love Francisco, who's terrific, but his approach is more flexible. Let's put it that way. One time after I returned from my summer trip to China to gather research data, I met with Professor Tsang in his office. As is with Chinese tradition, one would wish to bring back a small gift or souvenir as a small token of appreciation, right, to thank your mentor for their support and guidance. So I brought back a small bag of tea to give to Professor Tsang. I said to him, it's nothing valuable, just a small gift to say thank you as a token of appreciation. But to my great surprise, he turned it down and said, I quote, "I never accept gifts from my students. You can buy me a cup of tea after you graduate." I was a little bit embarrassed, naturally, but I took those words to heart. Ever since, I try to hold myself to the same standard of Professor Tsang. This episode often pops into mind in my interactions with students over the past decade I've been teaching here myself at Columbia. I do find it difficult sometimes to uphold myself to the same principle. The students they're really nice and sincere. Tea, chocolate they bring back from their trips around the world. I don't wish to turn them down and make them feel uncomfortable. But I try to make a point by not taking a meal from my student. Some of the Chinese students they like to have a meal with you to have a deeper discussion. But I always pick up the check, and I use a similar line as Professor Tsang. I always tell them, you can buy me a meal after you graduate, perhaps after you were able to secure a job. Another story I'd like to share with you is when Professor Tsang one day suddenly emailed to see whether I can go down or up to New Haven to help Amy move into his dormitory when she first enrolled at Yale. I think Professor Tsang was sick or occupied that day, so he couldn't really help himself. He called me later that day and spoke to me on the phone, and that's when I found out the very first time he spoke Mandarin. We all know he's pretty business-like, very serious, only speaks English even to his Chinese students. And I think he insisted, Professor Li Danke, to give me $200. He said, it's not to thank you, but at least I have to cover your train tickets and your meals and the time you spend helping us. Professor Tsang is very kind and can be very humorous as well. But I think he's deeply principled. You don't learn that from books or handbooks, but you learn from observing someone behave in similar situations. Being a professor myself now, he's someone I learned from the most in that respect. These interactions with Professor Tsang are often fresh in my memory, and I try to emulate him when interacting with my own students. Professor Tsang has done great work professionally. He can be he was many things to many people, but to me, he's always been this one person whose commitment to integrity and principle is second to none. These are characters that can keep us peaceful at night, and they are the things that matters the most to our long-term success and fulfillment. Unfortunately, they're also very hard to come by in today's world. So I count myself very lucky to have met Professor Tsang and to have learned from him. Thank you. I have a small statement. I didn't have it printed out because Francisco just sent to me a couple hours ago. I'm very sorry I cannot be with you today. I'm away, out of town, and out of reach. However, I want to say a few words about Moon. I knew him well. We worked together in the economics education program at TC for over 15 years. We all know he was a gifted researcher and a teacher, as well as a devoted family man. As founder of the Center on Chinese Education, he was an innovator in promoting links between the US and China, a true peacemaker. And I always remember him for his willingness to collaborate. We worked together in many dissertations. His contributions were always valuable. He took time and efforts in making them, reflecting a selfless devotion to help others. He was honest and incorruptible. One time after student, it's a similar story. One time after a student successfully completed defending her dissertation, she offered the members of her dissertation committee a gift, a small traditional handcrafted wallet made in her country. He thought for a moment and then said that he could not accept the gift. I knew he did not want to give the appearance that was a bribe or payoff. I have to say that I did accept the gift. My failure, perhaps, but I needed a wallet. In any case, the success of his many students attests to his limitless energy and hard work. Moon was chairman of the Economics and Education program at TC for a number of years, and his legacy will live for many, many years. So with love and respect, I say goodbye, and by saying, long live Chairman Mansi Tsang.
Now we have our final speaker, my dear friend Haugen. And Haugen has a super intense, busy schedule. He works for UNICEF, and actually he's on the trip to which country? Like in Africa, right? So, but he, yeah, and then yeah, he spared his time to come and to share his memories, experience with Moon. Now let's welcome Haugen.
Good afternoon. As the last speaker today, I'd like to begin by sharing a memory of my very first conversation with Professor Tsang. When I met him in 2009, he told me that part of the reason he accepted my PhD application was that my name had appeared on the applicant list for 3 consecutive years, 2007, 2008, and 2009. That moment was deeply emotional for me. My subsequent experience in the Econ and Ed program confirmed that academic competency alone wasn't the reason I was accepted. There was so much for me to catch up on. The courses are not easy. I see my professors here. My classmates are all so brilliant. I will always be grateful to Professor Tsang for his patience and unwavering support throughout my journey at Teachers College. He provided not just academic mentorship, but also tangible support, including the bank checks to help me survive Manhattan. Over 30 reference letters that grew more generous with each iteration, and constant reminder of why I entered the program in the first place. When I say academic mentorship is not general mentorship, it goes hardcore sometimes. At the beginning, he even tried to help me correct my grammars. And later, when I also need to help others, I realized that really needs a lot of patience. Proudly, though somewhat shamefully, since it took 7 years, I graduated with a dissertation on China's rural education, including 3 years of field intervention and data collection covering over 1,000 students, as I had promised to Professor Tsang in 2009. That dissertation also marked the beginning of my career in international development, which started in the Middle East as the first Chinese face in the Syria education response. And we all know that Professor Tsang was not only a pioneer in supporting rural education and international development through his research, but also a role model in turning those values into meaningful actions. He's always an inspiration to me, telling me that I can try what I want to do, despite that there are not many people trying the same thing surrounding. And I often found some parallels between Professor Tsang and myself as well. We both began our academic journeys in science before changing course. We both had connection to Michigan State University, albeit for a short time. And from my very first conversation in 2009, I realized that we both share a Cantonese heritage, made unmistakable by our distinct accents in both Chinese and Mandarin, as you can also tell now from my English here. And of course, the difference were equally apparent. Professor Tsang was far smarter, more diligent, and held himself to a moral standard that I can only aspire to. But we'll never truly match. Here, I actually have the same example about giving the tea, but don't already mention it, so I will skip. This reflection becomes more personal for me as well. Last year around this time, I spoke at another memorial, more precisely the funeral of my own father. Like Professor Tsang, he endured a tough battle with illness following his retirement. Though through that experience, I, as a son, came to understand the immense pressure that falls on those closest to the one we've lost. For my father, it was my mom. For Professor Tsang, it was Professor Lee. Professor Lee and also Amy, who's online. I want you to know that you've done so much for Professor Tsang and have honored his memory beautifully. He will be immensely proud and deeply grateful for all that you have done and continue to do. Let me conclude here by celebrating Professor Tsang, not just his brilliant mind, but also his beautiful soul. His legacy lives on through his work, his students, and the values he instilled in all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Haugen. It's getting emotional because it just reminds me, Moon, as a Confucian scholar, he has really connected everybody. He respects through his respect, and he created a family, a scholarly family. Like Haugen is my younger brother, and I'm his older sister. So that's how we help each other, we support each other, and more importantly, we carry on. We carry on his legacy. So with that, we want to end with because this event begins with the music, and we want to end with the music as well. And especially today, we're having this celebration, cross-cultural celebration. So we're very honored to invite our dear friend, colleague, Lisa, a brilliant musician, to sing a song to end this event. And as you might know, this is a religious song, it's a hymn, but we don't have to think of it in just a narrow religious way, because just the title itself, let's talk about we, and it's beautiful. If you're familiar with the song, we invite you to sing along. All right, now welcome Lisa and our pianist. So the pianist is from Columbia Medical School, and he's also taking piano lesson here at TC. So with that, that's a perfect ending of this event. I enjoy every moment of the memorial service for Moon. And I'm sure Moon, we have his spirit in our heart forever, and we'll carry it on. And he would be, as we all know, if he were with us, will be very proud of us. And thank you. Thank you for making this event possible. Your kindness, your generosity, deeply, deeply appreciated. Thank you. And yeah, we have a reception in Everett Lounge, and hope we can spend some time to connect, reconnect, and most importantly, enjoy the rest of the afternoon. Thank you all. Thank you for your time. Thank you.